Coca-Cola spend endless billions on advertising every year, but will never once try to sell you on their products. They sell an idea, happiness, harmony, togetherness. But some would say it's a distraction from the disturbing truth. There are a lot of serious accusations against the company that they've caused disease, droughts, exploitation, and much, much worse. So buckle up. We're going on a journey through Coke's incredible history, spanning 3 different centuries. We'll be examining how Coca-Cola really became one of the most recognized brands ever, and at what cost. Because one thing is for sure, you don't build an empire selling sugar water by telling people the truth.
Every single day, more than 2 billion servings of Coca-Cola are consumed around the world. That's not a typo. 2 billion. Every single day. It's the most recognized brand on the planet. The red logo, the signature bottle, the feeling of cracking one open on a hot afternoon. But behind that perfectly crafted image of happiness and togetherness is a story most people have never heard. A story involving cocaine, Nazi Germany, murder accusations, and one of the most aggressive manipulation campaigns in corporate history. This is the disturbing history of Coca-Cola. The year is 1886. Atlanta, Georgia. A pharmacist named John Stith Pemberton is sitting in his backyard, stirring a pot of syrup over an open flame. Pemberton wasn't a businessman. He was a Civil War veteran who came home from the battlefield with a serious morphine addiction, the result of a wound he picked up during combat. Like thousands of men his age, he was hooked on painkillers, and he desperately wanted a way out. So he started experimenting with a new ingredient he'd been reading about: cocaine. At the time, cocaine wasn't a street drug. It was sold in pharmacies. Doctors prescribed it, and Pemberton genuinely believed it could cure his addiction. He mixed coca leaf extract, which contained real cocaine, with cola nut, a natural source of caffeine, sugar, and carbonated water. He called it Coca-Cola, and he sold it at his pharmacy counter as a medicinal brain tonic, a cure for headaches, fatigue, and nervous disorders. Here's the part that should make you pause. Each serving of the original Coca-Cola contained roughly 9 milligrams of cocaine. People weren't just drinking a refreshing beverage, they were drinking a drug, and of course, they kept coming back for more. For a few years, the drink sold modestly, but Pemberton was broke, sick, and still struggling with addiction. By 1888, he sold the rights to Coca-Cola to a man named Asa Griggs Candler for just $500. It was arguably the worst deal in American business history. Candler was a sharp, ruthless businessman who immediately saw what Pemberton had missed. This wasn't just a medicine, it was a product people craved. He pushed it aggressively into soda fountains across the South, offered free samples to get people hooked, and within a decade had turned Coca-Cola into a nationally recognized name. But by the early 1900s, there was growing pressure from the government to clean up the cocaine in the product. Candler agreed to remove it in 1903. Here's the problem. It wasn't actually removed for health reasons. What pushed Candler to finally act were racist rumors spreading across Georgia. Candler didn't just remove the cocaine, he also cut the company's ties to black consumers entirely at the same time. The formula was reformulated with a high dose of caffeine instead. Coca-Cola still uses a decoconized version of the coca leaf extract to this day, just without the cocaine itself. The drug was gone. The addiction sign was not. Fast forward to World War II. Coca-Cola had already spread far beyond America, with bottling operations across Europe, including in Germany. When the United States entered the war, the American military stopped supplying Coca-Cola syrup to the German operation. The German branch, run by a man named Max Keith, suddenly couldn't make Coke anymore. Rather than shut down, Keith gathered whatever local ingredients he could source inside wartime Germany, leftover apple fiber from cider production, whey from cheese making, and created an entirely new drink. He called it Fanta. Fanta was invented inside Nazi Germany during the war to keep Coca-Cola's German operation profitable under the Third Reich. When the war ended, the American parent company reclaimed the German operation, took ownership of all the profits made during the war years, and folded Fanta into its portfolio as if nothing had happened. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Coca-Cola faced serious accusations in Colombia that went far beyond corporate scandal. Union workers at Coca-Cola's Colombian bottling plants alleged that company managers had colluded with paramilitary groups to threaten, intimidate, and in some cases murder union leaders who were organizing for better working conditions. Multiple lawsuits were filed in the United States. Coca-Cola denied all involvement, and the cases were ultimately dismissed on jurisdictional grounds, not on the merits of the accusations themselves. The company was never found liable. But the stories from the workers involved never went away. The allegations remain one of the most serious in the company's history. In 2004, villagers in Kerala, India, began noticing something alarming. Their wells were running dry, crops were failing. More than 50 villages were being affected. The Coca-Cola bottling plant nearby had been drawing enormous quantities of groundwater to produce its beverages. Local farmers who had relied on those water sources for generations were left with almost nothing. The state government eventually ordered the plant to shut down. Then there's the plastic. Coca-Cola is consistently ranked as one of the world's biggest producers of plastic waste, generating around 3 million metric tons of plastic packaging every year. That works out to roughly 200,000 plastic bottles every single minute. The company has made public commitments to improve recycling. Critics argue those commitments have largely been greenwashing, using environmental messaging to protect the brand, while the actual plastic output continues at the same scale. Here's what ties all of this together. Coca-Cola has spent more money on advertising than almost any other company in human history. And the genius, or the disturbing part, is that they almost never sell you the drink itself. They sell you feelings. Their ads don't say, "This tastes good." They show families laughing together at Christmas, friends sharing a moment, a cold Coke on a summer afternoon. Happiness, connection, warmth. That modern image of Santa Claus, the jolly red-suited figure most of the world pictures, was largely shaped by a Coca-Cola advertising campaign in 1931. Before that campaign, Santa looked different in different parts of the world. Coca-Cola literally shaped a global cultural icon to match its brand colors. That is the most sophisticated marketing machine ever built. So here's what you're left with. A drink that started as a cocaine tonic, sold by a morphine-addicted pharmacist, built into an empire by a man who removed the cocaine, partly for racist reasons, kept profitable in Nazi Germany by inventing an entirely new product, accused of turning a blind eye to violence against workers, draining water supplies in developing countries, pumping plastic into the environment at a scale that is difficult to even comprehend. And through all of it, the smiling ads, the red cans, the Christmas campaigns, the image has barely cracked. That is the disturbing history of Coca-Cola, not just the story of a drink. The story of how a brand becomes so powerful, the truth gets buried underneath it. If this story surprised you, subscribe, because the next one goes even deeper.